to the question, what if?
Hello everyone, welcome to another rendition of our What If coverage. Today we have Lucha Johnny, this way again, Lucha Johnny joining us from the Geek the F Out channel. Welcome, Johnny.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. And today's episode is What If the Avengers Assembled in 1602. So, I guess we'll just jump straight into it. We'll go with Johnny first, then Stanford. What was the thing that stood out to you the most, that you enjoyed the most from this episode?
Jon Favreau blew my mind with his performance in this. He was amazing. I did not expect anything like what he gave us. It was astounding. I was amazed.
How about you, Stanford?
I second what Johnny's saying. Jon Favreau, MVP. I also really liked how Captain Carter was actually talking to.
Oh yeah, with the Watu.
So yeah, I just thought that was kind of cool. Rather than him just always just being in the stars, they were actually having a conversation.
Yeah, that was cool.
I liked when he was like, "Oh, wait, you can see me? You can hear me?"
Yeah. Yeah, because he's basically in the whole sequence, he's basically like, "Oh, she doesn't have a way out. She's just having a bad day. She can't get home. She's failed. She's done all this." She's like, "I can hear everything you're saying.
I can hear what you're saying."
Yeah,
really.
And
that's like the earlier episode, when he was like, "What the hell?" When he
yes,
got caught off guard.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting too. Like within this episode, when he's kind of recapping how she got to where she is, I was like, oh, so you caught yourself up now, and you didn't include that part where when that happened to her, you were like, oh, what the hell? But yeah, I thought this whole episode was interesting. Now, have either of you read the Neil Gaiman 1602 comics?
No.
I haven't, but after this episode, I definitely want to check it out and see.
Yeah,
because I know it's very expansive. I guess definitely obviously goes way more in depth to the 1602 Marvel universe than that. But I really enjoyed that in this episode. And the first thing that I thought was kind of funny too is that because it's 1602, he kind of got the Game of Thrones-esque thing there, which with Thor and Hela, when he's like, "Oh, my queen," I was like, "Oh wait, are they supposed to be married in this?"
Yeah,
they're together. And then he just straight up says "my sister" too. So I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, interesting." I didn't know we were gonna get so much Hela in this season too, which they didn't have to credit Cate Blanchett in this episode since she's essentially just Hela yelling, I guess.
Yeah.
So but this one's kind of cool too, because it's almost it's a little bit of I guess cutting to the end quickly. Spoilers for the recap of this episode is, so when we find out that the Steve Rogers in this is a Steve Rogers who himself is again out of time, again much like Peggy says, being in the wrong time at the right place is kind of my thing now. Basically, it's Steve Rogers during the Infinity War fight as he hits Thanos. He brushes up against the time stone, which essentially causes this anachronism where it combines 1602 with the 21st century. Which speaking of Awatu and Peggy talking with one another too, I thought he's like, oh, you already understand what's going on. She was able to figure it out right away. I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, what did you guys think about that? I thought that whole thing too about him being Awatu saying it's sad, but a lot of these worlds are meant to just die. It's almost feels like it's subtly kind of laying groundwork for what we'll be getting in the live action films of Secret Wars and whatever King Dynasty ends up being called, if it's not still called that. So what did you think about that whole aspect of this episode? Johnny, okay.
I thought it was interesting. Like they're establishing that like not everything lasts forever.
Yeah.
Like so, not all these universes are going to last forever. I don't know if this counts as like because they didn't use the word incursion, but it seems like that's what this would be. So that's interesting to ponder. Like, is this different than an incursion? Because they did say the timelines were brushing up against each other, right? Or the realities. So it sounds like a blueprint for the incursions that they've mentioned before, but they didn't use that term in this one.
Yeah. What do you think, Stanford?
Well, that's a really good question because it doesn't mean anything for like the cinematic, the MCU, or is it it's kind of a one-off. I don't know. I honestly don't know what to think about it. Hopefully, we'll get some more answers tomorrow. Because this is a two-parter. But anyway, I don't know. Sorry, what to say.
One of the things that I thought was interesting about this too is that like we don't really see it at first, although you can kind of see like in Happy's like neck there's like a little bit of like a purple like vein there like hiding. You're like, all right, well that's interesting, and then they straight up like call out to it, and then by the end he turns into the freak. I didn't know that we would get that again this season, like after the What If Happy Hogan Saved Christmas, to like get like another Happy Hogan that has also had that happen to him.
A purple Hulk, essentially.
Yeah,
Hogan.
The freak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering too, but like I was wondering, is that the same Happy Hogan from the previous episode, or is it a different one who just so happens to also have the Hulk blood in him? And then at the end, like Peggy activates the device and everybody in that throne room gets sent away except for her. Is it because she was the one who had the gauntlet on, so she's the only one who stayed, and everybody else in that throne room was sent back to their actual timelines? Like that's the only thing I can assume. It's because she had the gauntlet on.
Right. That's what I was wondering too. Yeah.
I enjoyed that too there with Tony. At first I thought it's kind of like a variation like on the briefcase like suit from Iron Man 2, but essentially like a briefcase gauntlet, nano gauntlet, I guess. Now the thing in there too, I liked the joke that he kept having there with Peggy, where he's like, "Oh, I love all these words that you keep coming up with. They're like opium to my ears." And she says,
"Flux capacitor."
Yeah, when she said that, I was like, it's like another Back to the Future reference in the MCU.
Yes.
So Scott didn't have to call it BS this time, so that was cool.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I thought was interesting in this too is that now we have Steve Rogers as Rogers Hood.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, shouldn't if anyone is going to fill in for Robin Hood, shouldn't it be the dude that is the archer? Like, shouldn't Hawkeye be Robin Hood?
Yeah, Hawkeye was missing. I was wondering about that too.
Yeah, Natasha too. I mean, outside of the flashback, but
which oh, was she in the flashback? Because I saw Lake Bell's name in the opening credits, and I know she's been doing Natasha, but I didn't see her in the episode at all.
Yeah, I think it was just crediting basically for the flashback that the Watcher gives to how Peggy got to like the 1602.
Okay.
Marvel.
Yeah, and I was thinking, did she even have a line, or did she just kind of like make a sound?
No, it was just like that the lines that she had from that episode.
From that particular episode, yeah.
Peggy gets pulled in there. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting how like Hawkeye and Natasha were kind of absent within this 1602 universe. But it was interesting to see who was included within this and all of like the different renditions we got of like these 1602 versions. Like obviously like Thor, Loki, and Hela kind of fit right in like into like going back to like the Kenneth Branagh Shakespearean versions of like these characters, like doth mother knoweth you wear her drapes, like Shakespeare in the Park. So I thought it was cool, like we finally got that. And then like Loki talking about Iago, I thought was like a whole. And it was also, I mean, Tom Hiddleston probably loved getting to be Loki straight up doing Shakespeare. So it's like a
Yeah.
metatextual level thing that he got to do all this different stuff as Loki in this episode.
I forget what the catalyst for it was, but the line where he just goes over and goes, "Oh, bless," was just.
Oh yeah, oh,
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
That
I
was
think it was
great.
either something with
I-
like one of like Happy as with one of the Hulks there or
I
something
think
like that.
I think it might have been Peggy saying, "Oh, and they think your brother's
Oh, yeah,
more
he's
dramatic
like-
than your brother."
Yeah, you say more
yeah,
dramatic than your
that's
brother.
right.
Yeah, and that was kind of
That's
interesting
funny.
too. That Thor had like a vibranium sword in that. So that was,
Yeah.
and they just kind of referenced T'Challa. There's like, oh, his kingdom is also having anachronisms going on there too. So I thought, and that speaking of the Shakespeare stuff with the Loki's Yorick skull, and it gets taken away. He's like, poor Yorick. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Shakespeare jokes, nice. And I did like, so like within Civil War, Infinity War, we got like these like teamings of characters. I liked in here how we had that team of Scott Lang, Collins. Thanks for joining, Collins. We had Scott Lang and Bucky and Steve Rogers in this as like kind of like the heist crew. And I thought at first, like too, like when they said, "Oh, you're gonna need someone that can pull off a heist," and I immediately thought of Scott Lang with that, but I didn't know who we would
Yeah.
see with that. But I thought I really enjoyed Paul Rudd in this episode, like as Scott Lang, like within this 1602 universe. What did you guys think of like that pairing of like, I mean, Bucky and Steve kind of always go together. But what did you think of like Bucky, Steve, and Scott as kind of like a team in this, and then like that different kind of use of like the yellow jacket kind of stuff within here as well? Johnny, and then Stanford.
It was definitely interesting. The combinations of people, and then it's a shame. Like I can't help but think of it's a shame. So many of the MCU cast was in these. Like it's basically everybody but Downey and Johansson. Like
And
everybody
Evans.
else came back to voice their character. It's a shame for whatever reason that those two either didn't want to do it or weren't approached for it or were too expensive. Like I feel like they can't be too expensive for it because they've got everybody
Yeah,
else.
they've got everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody but them. So, but I mean that's not really related to the question, but that's the thing that I keep thinking is it's a shame that those two weren't there.
I wonder if specifically with those three, because so Black Widow is, spoiler alert, dead. So
Yeah.
and RDJ, his Iron Man, dead,
Yeah.
and Chris Evans, Steve Rogers, dead? Question mark. Which
Very elderly.
quick aside to that, when Steve in this asked Peggy about him, asked her to tell him about her Steve, and she's like, "No, I don't think I will." And I was like, "Nice. I liked that she did that in this time." But that's the only thing I can think of is like maybe they're like, we kind of retired playing those roles, and like that's the only.
Yeah.
Because it's like very specifically those three that are kind of like wrapped their stories. That's all I can think of is with that. Because otherwise everyone else is kind of still, in here, or they were like one-off villains or whatnot.
Well, wait, 'cause that was Chris Evans in the episode, wasn't it?
Oh, it was Josh Keaton.
Oh, I
it's-
thought
it wasn't Chris Evans.
Okay, so it's those three. Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe it's the characters that we aren't going to see in the MCU anymore. They're not bringing in for the voice.
Yeah, that's
roles.
the only thing I could think of there. And like even like in season 1, I can't recall his name off the top of my head, but the kid that was doing the voice for Tom Holland's version of Spider-Man, that sounded very close to Tom Holland, but isn't Tom Holland. And I don't know if that's like a Sony Disney contractual thing where like he can't, like maybe because even like the version of the suit in that is the Avengers campus version of the Spider-Man suit, so it's not even like I'm pretty I mean, unless he shows up in the finale, Spider-Man's not even in this season of What If. So I mean that's like the only reason I can see for like for some of these people not coming back, especially when you're getting like Kate Blanchett and like Kurt Russell and Lawrence Fishburne and
Benedict
and
like everybody
Yeah.
else but those three. Yeah.
That's like literally the only reason I can think of why those three haven't come back.
Yeah.
And like with that too, like I enjoyed, like I point out, like with the Yellow Jackets, like the kind of turning of that in here, and also like the armor of the knights in the palace that King Thor is in, like how much it looked like the Chitauri. I thought that was kind of like a cool design element with that. So what did you guys? I guess that's a good way to bridge over to like what did you guys think of like how everything was kind of designed to fit within the 1602 version of like these characters that like we know. You can go with Sanford then Johnny this time.
So I'm a broken record, but I think the animation's just been stellar. So I thought everything looked great. I thought the art direction was just really cool. Love the 1602 stuff. And one of the things that I love that I forgot to mention, which I guess is kind of related to this, is I love the Return of the Destroyer.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was outstanding. And also really I thought fit the aesthetic, in a way, because it's that kind of armor. Yeah, that was cool.
how about you, Johnny?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The use of the destroyer was really cool. One of my favorite episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation is Cupid, where Q comes and takes the entire crew of the Enterprise to like a fake Nottingham. Like, so that's one of my favorite things with these what if style is when you displace characters.
Yeah.
So this was right up my alley. I really liked like the 1600s version of these. Something interesting that I saw too in the subtitles. I don't know if you guys watched with it, but they referred to Wanda as Wanda Merlin.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and her like kind of like crown or tiara or whatever it was like on her head that to make it look like the Scarlet Witch like headpiece. Thought that was kind of cool how that was fit in there too. The other thing I liked in here too is like the reframing of having Bruce as the Hulk be like the man in the Iron Mask, which I mean they could have very easily just had that be Tony, because I mean the man in the Iron Mask.
Yeah.
But I liked how they did that with Bruce in here, and it's always cool to see the Hulk with a beard too.
I know. I like the Hulk with the beard too.
Plus,
And the
Okay.
Iron Mask looked like the Iron Man Mark 1
Yes.
armor
Yes.
faceplate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought we saw maybe like in Tony's like workshop or whatever in this too. So maybe it was, but because I think that's supposed to be the part of the thing too is that they are still like friends in here, like the science bros within this. And with that version of the Hulk, I liked the Shakespearean way this Hulk would say stuff like Hulk smash thee, or just
Yeah.
or like shut thy mouth.
Yeah. They're having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, like with like all like the Shakespearean turn of phrases and stuff here, I thought was great. And like the other thing here too, it's like very subtle kind of stuff too, but like you can see it like within the costuming of like how they kept some of the characters close to that too, like with like Tony's garb that he's wearing, it's like a lot of it's like red and like gold in color too, and like obviously like with Scarlet Witch, her stuff's like all like the red that she normally has on. Nick Fury's is, I like how he's Sir Fury in here too, and instead of Nick
Yes.
Fury.
I didn't notice until about the end of the episode that Rogers still had like a red star on his chest.
Oh yeah, like it still looks like his Infinity War kind of suit that he had going on there, and like even his shield, like is closer to like the arm shields that he had in Infinity War that he got from Wakanda there. I thought was cool, and I liked the kind of trade off there with him and Peggy, like with him using her Captain Carter Technically, I feel like she should. I know there already is a Captain Britain, but I feel like shouldn't she be Captain Britain in that universe? I know.
I always thought it was weird that
but...
she was Captain Carter.
Yeah,
and I agree with you. Alliteration is fun. I love alliteration, but like that she was just Captain Carter instead of Captain Britain or America. It's like she could just be Captain America for America, but it would make sense that she would be Captain Britain.
Yeah, which if she's in that universe, she's Captain Britain. Captain then because I remember when the trailers came out for like this season 2, a lot of people thought the Steve in this episode could have been either Union Jack or Captain Britain. And here, obviously, he's not our Steve, but he is a Steve. And yeah, with Steve being the forebearer, as they were calling him in this, I liked that in here too, because it was like kind of as we get into that part with like it's like, oh, we don't get to have a happy ending again. Like, cause she's like, this is the same Peggy that just like had to deal with the Hydra Stopper episode earlier this season, and then that Steve, I'm assuming had similar events to like our Steve from the Sacred 616 MCU timeline. And then he's like, I'm sure somewhere out there we got one. And for people that have seen it again, yes you did. So I enjoyed that. And yeah, Tim, who's in the chat, said he thought it was going to be Strange Supreme. That's kind of what I was thinking too, is that it was going to be, since we saw Strange Supreme in the, I know Johnny hasn't seen that episode, or wait, you have seen that episode, right?
I've seen it, all the episodes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, where we saw Strange Supreme show up at the end of the Corte episode, where maybe like that was going to bridge. I mean, we can go to that. He does show up in this episode after it's just Captain Carter there at the end, which seems like it is, again, like you said, Stanford. This is like the first episode that's said to be continued.
Yeah.
There at the end, where they're all kind of like loosely connected outside of that. And I don't know if either of you watched the clip that they released for tomorrow. All right.
I did. Thanks for thank you, Mark. Yeah.
Johnny, do you want to know what happens in that clip?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the clip is Peggy and Cohorte fighting seemingly the zombies from season 1, or it could be a different
interesting
zombie universe, and then Hela, not Hela the White, but like evil Hela is controlling these zombies in that clip, and then like that's what the clip is. So
yeah, I like the interconnectedness of this whole season so far, and I didn't think the Forebearer was going to be Strange Supreme, but I didn't expect it to be one of the characters in that room. I thought it was going to be somebody else that we hadn't seen in the episode
here, Johnny.
yet.
Yeah.
And then I figured with the title, it's interesting that they released a clip of them fighting the zombies. I figured with the title of What If Strange Supreme Intervened that it was going to be a callback to something from the previous season. Because I think that's the first, we saw Strange Supreme in we had a lot of Doctor Strange in season 1, right? Like he had more than one episode that really focused on him. And Strange Supreme was one of those, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
So I figured that was going to be a callback like to something from season 1, so that's interesting to see too.
Yeah, I guess as we kind of start to wrap up and segue to the end of like what we're thinking about might show up in the finale, is there anything else that stood out in the 1602 episode that you wanted to call out again as we kind of move our thoughts towards the future? Stanford or Johnny?
I'm good.
No, I can't think. Just shout out to Jon Favreau for an amazing performance as Happy Hogan in this episode. And I think the other interesting thing that I don't think we quite touched on is, it's obvious though, but that the staff in this, instead of having the blue one's the space stone, right, from the Tesseract.
I believe it was the Mind Stone that was in Loki's stuff.
Yeah, this has the Time Stone in it, which makes sense, I guess, with like within this one how like that happened. So that should be interesting too. And like the other thing that got released today was a clip, and in it says what if season 3 coming soon. So we don't know what coming soon means, but coming soon could mean in a few months, 2024. But it was interesting because that clip was Bucky and the Red Guardian
basically Thelma and Louising it. It seemed like,
With the really young Nick Fury too, right? Wasn't that
or
Nick
no,
Fury?
no, that was it was Lawrence Fishburne. It was Goliath.
Oh, it was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, as a cop there, and then America Ferrera is doing the voice in this clip that got released too, and her last name is Morales, so
Interesting.
Yeah.
should be
Interesting.
it should be interesting to see. I thought that was cool if they had America Ferrera in there, but yeah, it's like a Bucky, and it's like a 1980s Bucky and Red Guardian, and it's like an old muscle car, and they're and then like that's where the clip ends. But it should be interesting to. I'm hoping maybe that's earlier in the season next year than later, or maybe they'll do it next year again, where like they release it like around this time and they do like one a day kind of thing. But I thought that was kind of interesting seeing that and that there too. But what do you guys hope to see within the finale based off what we've seen in this second season of What If as we wrap up? Go Stanford and then Johnny.
Well, I would love some more Kohori or Kohorty. See if she shows up at all. Maybe not, but I think that'd be cool if she did. And I'm really interested to see what Doctor Strange is cooking up. What's happening? Yeah.
How about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I'd like to see more Cohorty too. I'd like to see if there's any possibility that they transfer her over to the MCU somehow, like live action. I'd be interested to see. I'm sure it's just going to be another half-hour episode, but I'd like it if like the last episode of this season was like an hour.
I know, right?
Okay.
I don't think 90 minutes is reasonable. I don't think there would be feature length, but I think a little longer, 45 minutes to an hour, if they can fill the time. But always appreciate when they keep things tight and the pacing good rather than stretching it out to make it longer. So whatever's best for the story that they're trying to tell.
Agreed. Yeah, and like we know Devery Jacobs is in Echo, but playing a character named Bonnie in that. So unless that's some like very, like secret name, like to people that have seen like Star Trek Into Darkness. With speaking of strange, with like how someone was given a certain name in that, and then that person ended up being something else.
Yeah.
In that movie, maybe that's like a way to hide that Bonnie in Echo is maybe Carte. But
Maybe.
I mean, I know that Devery Jacobs has said. I mean, obviously, if you have to ask an actor if they want to work again, yes, they will say that
Yeah.
because.
Exactly.
Yeah, because she's like, yeah, I would like to play Cohorte in live action. So, I really hope that a lot of maybe a culmination of a lot of this stuff, because it seems like at least this season of What If is doing maybe a bunch of heavy lifting for, and maybe we'll see more of it in season 3 depending on when that comes out, for setting kind of seeds and groundwork for Secret Wars and like those films, and hopefully maybe we'll see some of these characters in that. I would even be cool, do Roger Rabbit thing, because Multiverse Madness we saw America Chavez and Doctor Strange go through a world that was animation. Just have the animated characters alongside the live action characters. I would be totally fine with that. It'd be kind of cool too to just see like animated Cohorte standing next to like live action Benedict Cumberbatch, and then you could even have like animated Strange Supreme standing next to live action Benedict Cumberbatch. I think that'd be cool.
And it's not MCU proper, but we did see a mix of live action and animation in Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So that's already set the groundwork for that too. So I'd be totally cool with that, and I think it'd be cool to see that happen. But yeah, I think that'll wrap us up for today's episode of the Avengers. What if the Avengers assembled in 1602? Tomorrow's episode will be What if Strange Supreme intervened. Tongue twister there. So, Johnny, where can people find you online if they'd like to hear you talk more about geeky stuff?
Geek the F Out on YouTube and at GTFO channel on any social media, Instagram, Twitter, Threads. Kayla, my co-host Kayla, does all the social media stuff, but that's the handle for all of it. She posts on there.
Highly recommend it. All the stuff's great on there. I would highly recommend it, checking out their stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then for us, once all of these episodes are out, and all of these episodes will be edited down into one audio length episode, which will be fun to listen to if you didn't watch any of these, because it'll be us trying to figure out stuff as it went along. But you'll be able to hear that on animationpastination.net, and that's where all of our past episodes and everything else will be. And then the playlist for all of these individual videos will be there too. But so that will do it for us for today. But we thank you guys again for joining us, and we'll watch you again